Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about an interesting topic, and the topic is specifically to career or work. The reason why I'm doing this video is because a lot of us are struggling in our day-to-day to understand where our intuition comes from. How does the higher self contact us, and in which ways does this happen? Okay, so I'm trying to bring forth, as someone who is a higher self channeler, hi, if you do want an in-depth session with me, please come find me at www.uphighhealing.com, and we can book that session where you can delve into this a little deeper. Higher intuition in all facets of your career. Okay, us need to first realize that a lot of us are not in the right job, we're not in the right career. How do we know this? Because we struggle every day sometimes to get out of bed or to find the spirit, or not just the spirit, to find the energy to go to the job or the career we're in performing it. This in itself is a huge sign, okay? Interactions from day to day. Interactions, okay? Are they positive? Are they negative? Interactions specifically to your work ethic or title or job acuity. And if you don't know what acuity means, it means like how well you perform in your job versus others. Because the job place is one of the easiest ways to find your higher self. You know why? Because a lot of us tie in our job with our self-worth. Big ding, 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 ding. Self-worth. A lot of us in our careers, we struggle with this. Sometimes we don't want to ask for that raise. Ask for more money. The other side of this of self-worth, right? Is self-doubt. This seems to be where people are most comfortable in. The self-doubt side. Okay? If people just put as much energy and effort as they did in the self-worth as they do in the self-doubt, we'd all be aces. We'd all be chilling with our higher self all the time. So it's easy for us to pick up more hours. It's easy for us to give up of ourselves. Self-sacrifice more time and effort. Because you are not consorting with your higher self. This is a minimization side. This is what's easiest because that's what we feel. Self-doubt makes us feel supposedly safe. Makes us feel safe. Why do we take on more hours? Because we're scared, right? All about fear. Fear, 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 fear. Why do we pick up more hours? Fear. Why do we give up more of our time and effort? Fear. Why do we end up not asking for those raises and more money? Fear. The higher self will chime in when, let's say, for example, you're being overworked. The higher self will challenge you in places where you say to yourself, oh, I deserve more, okay? When you start feeling like you deserve more, your higher self will be speaking directly to you. It'll be in the way of something along the lines of like, oh, by now I should have gotten that raise. Why don't they understand what I'm worth? Okay? And you get very frustrated, right? The frustration builds when you do not listen to your higher self. Your higher self is telling you those words. Oh, you deserve better. You've worked here for years. Why don't they see this? Show them that you're worth this. Show them that you deserve this, right? That is the higher self talking to you all day, every day. The only reason why you get frustrated is because you are most content with the self-loathing. You are most content with the self-doubt. Now, a lot of people be like, why would I do that? Why would I self-sabotage like that in the workplace? I want to get the best money. I want to have the best raises. I want to have the best position. But let's be real with each other. How many of us are not? How many of us are what we would call pushovers? As pushovers, you know what we are? The best workers. Best workers. We think that if we do all this, give up our time, give up our efforts, spend less time with our family, we're going to be seen as the best workers. Now, I'm going to ask you a question and be honest with yourself. How many of the best workers do you ever see become the CEO? How many of the best workers do you ever see become the manager? How many of the best workers do you ever see rise? The answer is probably zero, zilch. Reason being is because when you're a pushover or you're the best worker, you're able to be walked all over. And they, as those that hired you or those that want to work within the parameters of how to squeeze the best work out of you, they put these limitations on you and they make you feel like you're not worthy. They go back to this self-doubt. They go back to the lack of self-worth that you have, and they keep pressing you on it. That's why there's things like employee of the month, employee of the year, whatever the case may be. Because the thing is that the pushover, the best worker, will strive for those small little crumbs, breadcrumbs as I put it, and it'll make them feel better. Those little accolades make us feel better. Please know that I was right there with you guys. Honest to God, I worked hard, diligent, because I felt like all the time, like my worth is, intrinsic to me working hard, right? That's not the case. You'll notice that persons that are in the manager positions are kind of cocky. You'll notice that persons in the manager positions tend to be not the best workers, but they do something that is very interesting, which is that they work smart. They don't struggle, okay, with the self-doubt thing. They work smart, meaning that they work their 9 to 5, right? Working smart means working their 9 to 5, not in excess, right? And doing that rubric of work that we are contended with our position. So you'll notice that those persons that move up on the social or the corporate ladder, let's just say, or any ladder in any world of business, you'll notice that they just don't work in excess. Why? Because again, their self-worth is intact. They emanate self-worth. That's what makes them most likely the best candidate to be a manager. Okay, it's not because they're the best worker. That is an illusion. It's because they understand the concept of working smart. They understand the concept of self-worth. They know that their whole life is not the job. And that's a very leadership take on things, okay? When you ask for a raise, right, you're going to ask for your self-worth. There is nothing wrong with asking for a raise. Nothing at all. All they can say is no. And if you know inside of your soul that your higher self has constantly been like, hey, Jim, hey, Bob, hey, Sandra, hey, Sally, why don't you go for that raise? Why don't you go for that raise? If you're still struggling, it's because you're still living in this world of self-doubt. You don't think you're worthy of the raise. It's also tying back to, like I said, the fear factor, because you think that if you go ask for a raise, you might get fired or you might not look in the best light, but it's actually the opposite, okay? The more you don't ask for a raise, the more you don't ask to deserve more, the more you become a pushover, you start to do something which is to stretch yourself, okay? When you stretch yourself, meaning you're taking on more hours, you're more stressed, you're sweating all the time, you're always in a rush, you're always panicked, you don't look like you have things under control. So when you don't have things under control, how can you really ask for things like a raise, right? Because you're not giving 100% to your role. You're giving 10% here, 10% here, 10% here, 10% here, trying to juggle all of these plates, all these spinning plates, right? So please understand that the higher self is always constantly assisting you and saying to you, take less work, do what you are asked to do in your role. Okay, move for the raises that you are entitled to, and deserve more. Because the thing is that if you were, let's say, a seamstress, okay, let's give it, and you make dresses, right? And if you start stretching yourself to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to start making scarves, I'm going to start making hats, I'm going to start making pants, shirts. But your whole reason for being a seamstress was to make dresses. Your hats, your pants, your shirts are going to be half-assed. You get what I'm saying? So if someone just focuses directly on the dresses, okay, and becomes the best dressmaker, right? That is what entitles you to the raise. That is what helps you to deserve more. When you're so stressed helping everybody else, right? When you're so stressed doing all these different things that you are not qualified to do, you are not hired to do, this stretching is what could lead to things like job loss. That's what could lead to things like refusal of raises. That's what could lead to things of not getting more hours in places and times that you need it, or being depended on because you're a pushover. If you're trying to be a manager and you keep taking on more and more and more and not having that fine line and not saying no, right? Or listening to your higher self as they say, stop taking on more. If you keep martyring yourself in self-doubt, you are not going to, A, get what you're looking for, because it's kind of a double-edged sword in that situation, because the stretching actually depletes you. The stretching actually makes you a less lustrous candidate for what you're looking for. So it's really in the best interest for you to listen to your higher self. Now, when the higher self is talking to you about raises, when the higher self is talking to you, let's say, to move out of positions, because you'll notice that the higher self does that too. Let's say, for example, the higher self is saying, move jobs, ask for a raise. Because if you're a little confused, what's the higher self? Who do you think's telling you this? We all have this inside. I've said this in my other videos. The higher self is the internal dialogue that you have with you. It's the higher elevated version of you looking for your best interest. That's it. It is not anything outside of yourself. It is in you. So please don't make it any more complicated than it needs to be. We all know what I'm saying here. How many of us have heard this in our head? This job sucks. Why don't I get another job? We've all heard it. Where do you think it comes from? Please answer that question for yourself. That is your higher self talking to you, saying, let's do what's best for you, okay? Asking for that raise, saying, you're worth it, buddy. Go ask for the raise. Aren't you tired of making less money? Come on, Joe. Come on, Steve. Let's go ask for that raise. That's your higher self, because they want you to succeed. That is the whole point of this. And the fact that human beings negate this day in and day out and day in and day out is a self-worth issue, okay? Nothing is going to happen to you if you ask for a raise. You're not going to get fired. If anything, people will respect you more, because if you can be the best worker and be admired for it, why wouldn't your bosses understand that? Why wouldn't your colleagues at work know this about you? The only one who doesn't know this about you is you. So please know that when you are hearing this rhetoric inside of you, like, come on, go get that raise, bro. Go and ask Jim or Joe for that raise. It's about that time. That is your higher self, okay? When you get asked to take more hours and you're already stretched and you want to be with your family and you hear this, no, don't take more hours, don't do it. You don't need to do it. That is your higher self. Okay? Why? Because your higher self knows better. Your higher self knows that more hours is going to stress you out. You're going to be sweating more. You're going to be, lacking in the home, lacking as a wife or husband. You're going to be lacking in all different areas. It's going to stress you out. So when you get asked to do more hours and you don't want it, the higher self is telling you don't take it, because that's the best thing for you. And there's nothing wrong. Your contract most likely says that you work 37.5 hours, not 55.5. So you easily could say no. No, unless there is some incentive, right? A balance. Unless there is some incentive, like let's say, for example, you do more hours and you get an extra week of vacation, something to that effect. Things must be balanced. If you do not fight for your rights and your higher potential, who will? It's not going to be them. No one's looking out for you except for you. And that's why the higher self is so important to listen to. Taking those baby steps day by day to protect yourself in your career, to protect yourself in the job place. Because that's why. Have a great day, guys. Hope this helped.